Okay, welcome to this lesson, guys. And as you know, we're looking at an English focus today, and in particular, vocabulary, which is a huge, actually, the hugest, the largest, the most important part of the 11 plus exam. Okay, by far, it's not even close. Okay, vocabulary is where we need to make sure that we're very, very strong. But do not worry, okay, because we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about why we need to be strong, and we're going to talk about how we become strong. But before we do anything, what I'd like you to do, I'd like a volunteer to tell me, what do you think I mean when it says using context to define vocabulary? So what does that mean, using context to define vocabulary? Let's go for Scarlett. Right, Scarlett, what do I mean?
Using context to define vocabulary is where not just the word itself, but the words around it give you an idea of what the word could mean. And I remember my example on Christmas where the if you don't know what the word meticulous means, the sentence would the presents were meticulously wrapped. And it must mean that it's wrapped with care because you wouldn't just throw some paper on it and call it a day.
Awesome, Scarlett. And therefore, what would you say context means all by itself? So the word context.
The words around the vocabulary.
So like details, yeah? I'm gonna write details and clues.
Clues.
Clues, yeah, good. Details and clues, okay? So that's really important, guys, right? Let me explain why it's important. 2 seconds, let's finish writing this. Now, details and clues are going to help us to define most of the words in the 11 plus exam, right? This is the way it works. So you'll get a text. Now, you are a human being and you're not expected to know every single word, the meaning of every single word. Okay, that's not likely, is it? I mean, I don't know the meanings of every single word. Neither do your parents, neither do your teachers, neither does your head teacher. No one knows the meaning of every single word. So why would you be expected to know the meaning of every single word? That's not what you're being tested on, okay? What you're being tested on is whether you can work out the meaning based on clues, based on details, okay? So if you get asked what a tricky word means, there will be evidence, there will be details, there will be clues within the text that helps you to define it, right? And that's what we really need to practice. And this is one of those skills that we must make sure that we're very, very comfortable with, okay? So let's move on just a tad. So why is understanding vocabulary so important for the 11 plus exam? All right, let me explain why. So vocabulary underpins a large proportion of the English exam. All that means is it makes up most of the English exam. Yeah, most of it. While you're not expected to know every unfamiliar word, you are expected to use context. So like Scarlett said, details and clues. You are expected to use context to work out meanings and continue understanding the passage. Okay. So let me summarize that bit. What that's saying is, if you don't know what a word means, there will be clues, there will be details, there'll be context which helps you understand what that word means. That's the whole point, yeah? Vocabulary does not usually form a separate block of questions, but it strongly influences many reading marks. So what that means is it's less likely that you're going to be asked questions like, what does this mean? What does that mean? What does this word mean? Yeah? It's more going to be based on questions that show that you've understood the word, but doesn't directly ask what the word means. Now that sounds a bit confusing, but in a minute it won't, because we're going to look at some example questions, okay? Understanding keywords supports comprehension, inference, and interpretation, all of which make up a significant portion of the paper. What that means is, if you understand what the words mean, if you understand how to define the words, know the meanings of the words, it's going to in turn help you with your comprehension, your inference, and your interpretation, okay? Which means you're going to get maximum marks in your reading paper. All right, last bit, guys, before we move on to the text. So, vocabulary shapes meaning. What that means is, here's an example. If a reader assumes barren, if they don't know what the word barren means, and believes it means brown, because it's kind of similar in sound, then the sense of emptiness is lost, right? So, this word barren, okay, it means like empty, right? Now, if you don't know what it means, and you assume it means brown, but just because they sound similar, then the whole idea of emptiness has gone from the story, and that's not a good thing. We need to make sure that what the author intended to be in the story remains in the story, so that we understand what the author's tried to say, so that we understand the tone, so that we understand the whole text. Okay, that's why vocabulary is super important. So what we're going to practice today is, remember, we don't have to be absolutely perfect at um, knowing the meanings of every single word ever. Okay, we don't need to do that. But what we do need to do is figure out how to find the meanings of the words, and that's what we're practicing right now. So hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't, it certainly will. This is the text we're reading. Take a look at the text. It's called The Unexpected Detour, a school trip adventure. All right. So what I'd like to do first is ask someone to make a prediction as to what this might be about based on the picture. So I'm going to ask. Let's ask 3 people. So the next 3 on the list. So Alexa, what do you think this might be about? This story.
I think the story might be about 3 children that go on an unexpected tour of the woods.
Okay, cool. I like that you've inferred 3 would be the main character, because there are 3 that are kind of very central to the image. I like the fact that you said woods, because you've inferred that the school trip's going to take place in maybe like a forest or something because of the picture. Awesome. All right, let's go to Annabelle. Annabelle, what do you think? Do you have any different ideas?
Um, I think they might be going on a hike because in the background I see like mountains and trees and like a lot of people with rucksacks. So they might be going on a hike to the mountains.
Awesome, cool, good inference. And finally, Daniel, what do you reckon?
I think it is, as it says at the bottom, a school trip adventure, and I do see a lot of other kids, so it is a school trip, and as it says, unexpected, that means that somewhere in the story it's going to have some sort of twist. So I think they're probably going to go off into the woods and find some sort of species that's never been found before.
Ooh, okay, cool. All right, I like your ideas, guys. And well done. None of you said anything random. You stuck to the visual clues that we have, okay? Right, so what we're going to do is practice those skills we spoke about just a minute ago, where we come across some tricky words. Remember, it's very important you remember this, guys. Very, very important that you remember. You do not have to know what every single word means, okay? The only skill that we're practicing is figuring out what it means through context. That's a different thing, yeah? So if you see a tricky word, don't panic, especially in the exam. Don't panic, okay? We're going to talk about how we figure out its meaning today. So first thing we're going to do is just read the text. So as I read it, what I'd like you to do, guys, is read along in your heads. So as I say each word, the words should also be sort of like echoing in your heads as well. So you're sort of like reading at the same pace as me, okay? All right. The coach shuddered to a halt at the edge of Greystone Forest, and 40 restless pupils pressed their faces against the windows. What was meant to be a straightforward school trip to the science centre had quickly become more adventurous than anyone expected. "Everyone off, please, calmly," called Mr. Hargreaves, though his tight expression betrayed his concern. As they stepped onto the gravel path, the class noticed how desolate the area seemed. The car park was empty, the visitor centre was shuttered, and even the birds appeared to have abandoned the silent trees. "Sir, are we in the right place?" whispered Amira. Before he could answer, their guide emerged from a narrow trail. She was a small woman with bright eyes and an effervescent manner that immediately lifted the group's mood. "Good morning, explorers," she said, clapping her hands. "The main road is closed, so we'll take the scenic route instead. I promise it will be far more interesting." Some pupils were thrilled, but Oliver remained apprehensive. He hovered near the back, adjusting the straps of his rucksack again and again, as though preparing for something unpleasant. The trail soon narrowed, forcing them to walk single file. When Callum tried to overtake everyone, the guide fixed him with a stern look. "Patience," she said. "There's no need to be so impetuous. Rushing ahead could be dangerous on uneven ground." Gradually, the trees thinned until the group reached a hilltop, overlooking a vast valley. Conversations faded into silence. For a moment, nobody spoke. Even the usually talkative Sophia seemed awed by the sweeping view of silver rivers and distant hills glowing under the morning sun. "Worth the detour?" Mr. Hargreaves admitted quietly. Oliver nodded, his earlier nerves forgotten. Sometimes the unexpected made a trip unforgettable. Okay, so we have read a text which is similar in style, in tone, in language to the one that you'll get in the 11 plus exam. Okay, there isn't going to be much difference. The language is similar, its difficulty is very similar. Okay, so if you find what we do today quite easy, that's a really, really good sign. If you find it tricky, no problem. We're going to keep practicing. Okay, but the main thing we're practicing today, as mentioned a few times now, is we must know how to find the meanings of words even if we've never heard those words before. Okay, and that's what we're going to practice. But before we do anything, let me go to Jacob W. Jacob, could you summarize that story for us in one sentence?
So 40 kids are going on a trip to the science center.
But
And
or and Jacob,
it was worth it.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Jacob. It was worth it. The only I mean, it's not bad, but that sounds like your subjective opinion rather than theirs. We want to try and talk in the eyes of the character. Let's go for Himani. Himani, am I pronouncing your name correctly?
You are pronouncing my name correctly.
That's amazing. Thanks, Himani. Could you summarize the story for us?
So the school, the 40 peoples went to the quick trip. They wait. The school people went in a trip to, and they went to the school trip to the science museum.
It's a good start, Hermione. Do you want me to ask someone else to finish it off, or do you need a bit more time?
You could ask someone to finish off.
Great start, Hermione. Well done. All right, let's go to Kiva. Oh, Kiva, I can't hear you. I don't know if your microphone's turned off. I can see that you're unmuted, but I can't hear you. I'm not sure why. Kiva, send me a message if you can get that fixed, yeah? Because I'd love to hear from you. All right, let's try Oki and Ari.
So there, some kids went on a school trip to the science museum.
Greystone Forest.
Oh yeah, no,
Greystone Forest.
No, you went so the kids went to the science museum and they thought and Oliver would thought it was gonna go like a bit badly, but when he saw the old woman or the person, and then he actually changed his mind because he thought it was more fun.
Okay, cool. Oki and Ari, good effort. So remember, guys, when we're summarising, what we want to do is we want to talk about very brief from start to finish. So imagine, right, we've got like this thing here happened at the start, this thing here happened at the end, and we want a sentence that gets us from here to here. Yeah. So we don't have to worry about details or anything. But I like how you guys have started. You've said a class full of students are on their way to the Science Museum, but, and then that's the part where I feel like we're not completing the summary. Let's go to Skylar, and if not, maybe we can ask one more, and then then I'll help you out.
Some children went on a school trip. They thought they were going to the science museum, but they ended up in the woods.
Cool. That's a good summary. Yeah. So, with summarizing, guys, being concise is key. Yeah. Saying as much, all the relevant details in as few words as possible. Is what we need to do. So try not to overthink it. Try not to add too many details. So a class, or we can be a bit more specific. We can say 40 students are heading to the Science Museum, or heading to a Science Museum, or to the Science Museum, but end up at the woods. Just something like that. It doesn't have to be fancy, guys, okay? It doesn't have to have adjectives, prepositions, or good adverbs. We just say what happened, yeah, from start to finish in as basic terms as possible. We're just showing understanding, that's all. So, let's move on with, continue with the vocabulary questions, guys. Now remember, I know I've said it about 10 times already. I'm going to say it one more time. You don't have to know what these words mean, okay? Your task is to find out what they mean by using context. So, here's your first question, guys. What do you think the word desolate means? So, number one, the word desolate most nearly means A, crowded, B, empty and abandoned, C, cheerful, or D, noisy. And if you've never heard that word before, look for context. Thank you, Skylar. Thank you, Jordan. Please try and send messages privately if you can, yeah? Thank you, Oki and Ari. Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Kiva. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Jacob. This is looking good, guys. Really, really good effort. Well done, Annabelle. Well done, Jacob. Well done, Ilo. Fantastic. Well done, Alexa. Well done, Himani. Thomas, can you...
Good morning.
Oops.
The soppy is dead.
Ignore her. All right, I need to ask you all once more. Please don't use the main chat. I've only turned it on because George got an answer. I'm going to have to turn it off. Okay, you need to make sure that you're talking in the private chat, not the main chat. Okay, it's very important that we're not giving other people answers. I need to know who gets what. Yeah, I've turned that off now. Okay, well done, Oki and Ari. Let's go through it. Okay, right. Let's go to Jordan. Now, Jordan, you said that the answer is B. You are correct, but how do you know you're correct?
It can't be crowded because it says the class noticed how desolate the area seemed. The car park was empty, and also it says even the birds appeared to be to have abandoned the silent trees, is meaning that it has to be B.
Awesome, good, and that's a really good exam technique, Jordan. So I'm just going to pick up on what Jordan did very well then, and that's one way of answering questions, especially in reading exams, is by the process of elimination, which is to remove options that you know it isn't. Obviously, the other idea would be to seek the answer in a more direct way, but either technique is fantastic, right? So I like what Jordan said, but also If we wanted to more directly find the answer rather than deducing and getting the answer, what we could think about is, well, what is the environment like around this word? Okay, what is it that's being described as desolate? Okay, now the area where they are is being described as desolate, and then we need to find, Hermione, don't write on the screen please, and then we need to find different clues within this area which gives it more character, which gives it more description, and then we can use those clues to tell us what desolate means, right? So like Jordan said, it says the car park was empty, the visitor centre was shuttered, and the birds abandoned the trees. So we can't even hear the sounds of the birds anymore. So we've got nothing going on. It certainly isn't crowded, it certainly isn't noisy, and there'd be no reason for it to be cheerful. Cheerful is almost quite irrelevant. The other two are antonyms, aren't they? Whereas cheerful is irrelevant. I should be crossing them, I do apologise. So the answer, of course, is empty and abandoned. Okay. Now, the thing is with the 11 plus exam is get that mark, right? Finding the answer to this question doesn't have to be difficult. All you have to do is locate it in the text, and like you guys have proven, find clues that support its definition. Okay. What you shouldn't do, and what some students do, is they look at the word desolate and they think, I've never heard that word before, I can't be bothered, I'm going to pick anything. But why would you? Remember, you're not expected to know the meanings of every single word. You're expected to be able to find the meanings of these words. It's a big difference, okay? All right, well done, guys. Let's move on to question 2. The guide's effervescent manner suggests she was A, strict and impatient, B, nervous and uncertain, C, lively and enthusiastic, or D, tired and uninterested. Once again, guys, let me know in the chat box. And remember, guys, look for those clues. Do not guess. We do not have to guess. Well done, Ragnar. Well done, Oki and Ari. Well done, Jack. Well done, Alexa. Well done, Ilo. Well done, Daniel. Well done, Jacob. Well done, Scarlett. Perfect. Well done, Jordan. Well done, George. Perfect, Kiva. Perfect, Annabelle. We've only got one incorrect at the moment. If that person is you, do not worry. We'll go through it in a second. But it looks like many correct answers. Now, again, I'm going to say it again, and I understand that I sound like a broken record, but I really want this to sink in, guys. When you look at a word like this, effervescent, it's a beautiful word, but it's very rare, rarely used. It could be the case you've never heard it used before, right? It would be unreasonable for an exam to ask you, 9 to 11-year-olds, to say what that means, to give it definition, when most adults don't even use that word, okay? So again, this question proves that it's not about defining the word directly, it's about using clues, using things from the text, like Scarlett said, details and context from the text that helps us understand what that word means, okay? And you did. So let me go to, I'd love to hear from you, Kiva, but I don't think you've sorted your microphone out, have you? Let's go to Ragnar. Ragnar, what do you think that effervescent means?
Effervescent means that she is lively and enthusiastic, because it wrote that she was small. She was a small woman with bright eyes and a effervescent manner that immediately lifted the group's mood. Means that the children was very unhappy, but the lady with her enthusiastic manner, she made the children very
Wow.
enthusiastic.
Wow, that's a brilliant answer, guys. Do you know what I like about you guys is that you're doing my job for me here. You're using exam techniques that I don't have to tell you, and you're illustrating for the others things that we can be doing to answer these questions. Right? Let me show you what Ragnar just did. He replaced the word effervescent with enthusiastic. He thought, does it work? And he read it. He said, she was a small woman with bright eyes and an enthusiastic manner. And then thought, does that fit? Does that fit with the tone? Does that fit with the atmosphere? Does it fit with the context? Would someone who's enthusiastic lift the group's mood? Of course they would. Yeah, perfect. This is a good exam technique. So we had Jordan earlier who was showing us how we get rid of some answers when we know it's not that answer, get rid of some options, sorry. And we had Ragnar who showed us that we can replace words with the options to see if it fits contextually. Okay, very, very good. Amazing, fantastic. Well done, guys. Let's keep going. So, actually, before we keep going, if you don't mind, because there are so many clues for what effervescent means, it'd be great to hear from someone else. Arlo, what other clues are there to tell us what effervescent means?
So if you look at number A, she wouldn't be strict if she was lifting the group's mood. And then number B, and then B, she didn't, she was nervous, you wouldn't have bright eyes. And then D, tired, you wouldn't lift up the group's mood if you were tired.
Cool. So yeah, so what you done is used the technique that Jordan used earlier. We got rid of answers we know it isn't. That's amazing. But I suppose what I mean is, could anyone find any other clues besides the fact that she lifted the group's mood? Did anything else happen that shows that she is an enthusiastic woman, that she's lively, besides the fact that she lifted the mood? Let's go to Annabelle.
So there's another one. So where it says immediately lifted the group's mood, that means that she was like really like excited and energetic to do it.
Cool, but let's forget her lifting the mood. Is there anything else in the text which shows that she's enthusiastic?
I don't think so.
Okay, let me ask Scarlett. Thank you, Annabelle. Scarlett, anything else? I think there's more stuff.
She said, "Good morning, explorers," and it doesn't say how she said it, but she was clapping her hands while she did it, which shows that she is enthusiastic.
Perfect. Yeah. And what about this exclamation mark? Does that add anything?
Yes.
What does that add?
It adds that she's excited and lively.
Yeah, perfect. Very, very good. Yeah. So, guys, think that all. I mean, I know that we could already answer it. I know that we already had enough clues to be able to confidently say that the answer is C. But it's always worth just looking around a little bit more, just to be confident with our answer, especially if we're checking our answers and we've got a bit of time. Yeah. Good morning, explorers! Exclamation mark. I mean, she could be shouting that. That exclamation mark could be suggesting she's shouting rather than being sort of happy and sort of over the top. But then she started clapping her hands, yeah, and she's lifting the mood. So all of this combined gives a really good idea of her personality. All right, well done, guys. Let's move on to question 3. Oliver felt apprehensive, which means he was... Well done, Jacob. Okay, all right. This one has challenged quite a few of us. It's okay though. We'll talk about it. Perfect, Kiva. That's correct. Perfect, Jordan. Perfect, Scarlett. Perfect, Jack. I can see people changing their mind, which is fantastic. Good. Sometimes you put an answer, then you have a little think, you find the clue, you change it. Nothing wrong with that. Perfect, Oki and Ari. Perfect, Thomas. Perfect, George. All right, shall we go through it? I think we should. Okay. So it might be the case that some of you already knew what apprehensive meant. That can happen in the exam. The other two words that we've looked at are examples of words that you're unlikely to know. This word might be a word you've heard before. Maybe you already knew the meaning of, but it probably is still worth just finding clues for its meaning. Okay. So let's go to. Who's got their hands up who I haven't spoken to for a little while? Let's go to George B. George B, what do you think apprehensive means? And more importantly, why do you think it means that?
It means worried something might go wrong.
Why do you think that?
Headphones still work.
Sorry.
But just because no.
I want them. People, be quiet. Need to be sorry. My brother. Bit noisy. So it might be worried something might go wrong because
Do you want me to ask someone else, George? It's good. You are correct, but do you want me to ask someone else, or are you getting the answer?
maybe we should ask somebody else.
You did very well, George. Fantastic, amazing. All right, Jack, can you help us out? What do you think it means, and why do you think it means that?
I put C because it says they'll be far interesting. It says Oliver remained apprehensive, and it says he hovered near the back, adjusting the straps of his rucksack, because it's not a lot of people like tighten their rucksack when they're like feeling confident, confused, or anything.
Awesome. Yeah, that I think I'm not sure who of you were in that lesson, but I remember recently we read a text where someone was fiddling with something when they were a little bit nervous. It's a very human thing to do. So the fact he's sort of playing around with his rucksack, adjusting them, sort of gives us that impression. But also, here it says some pupils were thrilled, but Oliver remained apprehensive. So we know that we're looking for an antonym, or at least a word that's kind of the opposite, has a different meaning to thrilled. And also it says he hovered near the back. Why would he hover near the back? Why doesn't he want to be at the front? What sort of person might go all the way to the back? Maybe it's the sort of person who doesn't want to, sort of be confronted by any dangers first. They want to stay at the back, yeah, to keep away from it. So yeah, well done, very, very good. The answer is C. Worried something might go wrong. Yeah, so apprehensive means nervous. All right, guys, we've got one more left to do, and you've been amazing. And before we do it, I just want to remind you once more that do not fear English exams. Do not fear them. Do not fear tricky words, okay? Whenever you're asked about a tricky word in the 11 plus exam, you can always ascertain its meaning by doing exactly what you've done today. Yeah, by looking at context and looking at clues. So don't let those words scare you, okay? So for the final time, guys, could you tell me, what do you think that word means? That's an interesting word. Calling Callum impetuous suggests he was being overly cautious, careless and quick to act, helpful, or quiet. What do you reckon? Perfect. Ragnar? Perfect. Thomas? Perfect. Annabelle? Perfect. Oki and Ari? Perfect. Jordan? Perfect. Scarlett? Perfect. Kiva? Perfect. Jacob? Perfect. Alexa? Perfect. Arlo? Perfect. Jack? Perfect. Daniel? Perfect. George? Wow, I think we've got a full house. That's incredible. That's really, really good. Amazing, guys. All right, for the final time, let's go to... I'm going to try Kiva again, because she's got her hands up, and I'd love to hear from her. But Kiva, is your microphone okay now?
Yeah.
Yay! All right, Kiva, what do you think impetuous means, and why do you think it?
I think the answer's B because it says that she said patience, and B says that it's careless and quick to act. And where it says patience, it means that maybe she's quick to act. So that's why I put B.
Awesome. And also, what does it say here?
Rushing ahead.
Okay. What might she be? What might she be telling Callum? Like, if she's saying, Callum, you're being impetuous. You're rushing ahead. What is she trying to say to him? What's he doing wrong?
He's being careless.
Yeah, he's been careless. He's overtaking people on uneven ground, dangerous through these woods or forest or whatever you call it. So yeah, we've got all of these clues that's showing that he's not being very thoughtful and considerate. He's being careless. Well done, Kiva. Fantastic. All right, well done, guys. So what we've done today is we've proven that even when words are very tricky, look, a quick reminder, look at the words we looked at really quickly. Let me remind you. We looked at impetuous, apprehensive, effervescent, and desolate. These are not easy words. In fact, they are tricky words, okay? But you've shown that you can find a meaning just by reading around the words, just by using context. And that's a skill you must bring into the exam with you, okay? Don't let scary words put you off because the answer is always in the text. Well done for today, guys. I'd really appreciate it if you could really quickly send to me a message, a number between 0 and 10. Can you tell me, how do you feel about your confidence today?